I'm Robin Raskin. You'll see me a lot today as flights all over America have been canceled. I'm substituting for many people. I have my new, come see me later, I have my new glasses on, and unlike most of the other glasses on the market, this one has a teleprompter built in. You can see if you do better than I did. I found out that my head waves way too much to use a teleprompter sitting on my eyes, but it's a worthwhile experiment to get good at it. And anyhow, you are about to see quite an extraordinary panel, and the first time we've had a panel like this here. We want to thank our sponsors, AGS in particular, for always believing in what goes on here at Silicon Valley Video Summit, B&H, if anybody was at Putt-Putt last night, and the sponsors who are all out on the exhibits. If you walk into the parking lot, you will see the California State's Park Department with their new remote van that educates California students all over the state. And you can check out all of our exhibitors until 6:30 this evening when we close the doors. So what are we talking about today? Can we do that next slide? We are talking about AI capital, betting on the next tech media stack. And so, as tech stacks keep ballooning, I think many people in the audience feel like you have to be able to understand what you're asking for, asking your bosses for, asking for investments. You're seeing AI investments certainly dominating the show these days. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, we're going to invite some Bay Area investors and incubators up on stage now, moderated by Seth Hallen, Hallstone Ventures, and really having a conversation about what the Bay Area is looking for in terms of investments and how you might be thinking about how that relates to what you do. So Seth, all yours.
Thank you. Come on up, guys. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I see a whole bunch of familiar faces out there, which is always a great thing. I'm Seth Hallen, founder and managing partner of Hallstone Ventures. Hallstone is a venture capital fund focused on the intersection of media technologies and AI. And most of my time is really spent with founders who are building workflow, monetization, and production tools across the media technology ecosystem. So we're about 4 weeks in to the year, and I know you've all survived probably about 400 AI pitches and meetings and probably arguments this year. So this session is not, here's another model that can edit a cat video faster. This is really where money, the power, and the risk are moving in your world as AI rewires the video stack. I spend most of my time in the weeds in AI and media with companies and investors and founders and buyers, and the thing I hear over and over again from people like you is, I'm getting, quote, I'm getting hit from all sides with AI, but which of these changes actually matter to me? How do I make decisions about my roadmap, my P&L, and quite frankly, my job in the next 3 to 5 years? So to set the stage, here are a few questions we're gonna wrestle with together. When does it make sense for you to build? When should you buy? And where do you have to partner? In a unionized, contract-heavy, IP-driven business, where are we actually allowed to use generative AI? If AI drives the cost of creating good enough content towards zero, what happens to distribution and monetization? Are new rails like micropayments and decentralized GPU and CDN and on-chain rights management real levers for the industry, or just very elegant science projects? And beyond efficiency, what entirely new breeds of content and fan relationships emerge from this? I'm fascinated by these questions. So now what's really cool about this panel, at least I think they're cool, is that we don't typically see in a media industry event, is this group is focused on evaluating the world from a capital investment perspective, which means their whole world and everything they do day in and day out is all about living in a future that does not exist today and having an opinion about that future and placing bets on where those best opportunities are. We, of course, think of founders as the great visionaries, but the visionary leadership of the folks like these cannot be understated or overlooked. These are fascinating and brilliant minds to try to get inside of. So now that I've buttered them up a little bit, and we only have a few quick 30 minutes, 26 minutes, hopefully the discussion will plant some seeds and get people looking at things in a different way and hopefully useful for everybody. If everyone took away some new perspective, then we win here. So with that, let's dive in and let's do some quick intros. We'll start with John China, just quick high-level introduction. Thanks, John.
Hey, everyone. Great to be here. My name is John China. I co-lead the innovation economy business at JP Morgan. It's very new business. And what's exciting, it's 9 sectors, so I'm probably the only non-investor focusing on venture-led, founder-led, and high-growth companies in the United States and Canada.
Hi everyone, I'm Ryan Gately, ESPT Ventures. We're focused on interactive entertainment and sports and kind of looking how the intersection and the opportunities into the future.
Hello everybody, I'm Ludovic from Sony, our corporate venture arm to Sony Ventures. We invest across many spaces from entertainment technologies, Web3, crypto, fintech, and I started my career at Sony way back in the broadcast and media, so I feel a lot of connection and very much look forward to discussing today.
And hey everyone, I'm Nik Nayar. I'm a venture capital investor with Greycroft and spend a lot of my time on looking at how AI shapes media in the enterprise and on the consumer side. So excited to dive in here.
So quick hand first to kick them off, get them all pumped up for the panelists. Thank you very much. Heck of a group, and I really appreciate you guys coming today to have this conversation. We've already been having a whole bunch of conversations that are super interesting. It's like one of those things where you wish you had everything recorded already. So let's see if we can get some of that going again today. Kind of just to dive right in to it, if every sort of 10 years is unrecognizable to the 10 years before it, let's kind of talk about 10 years from now when it comes to distribution and money flows. If you had to imagine what that looks like, and it's a pretty broad question, but what's your initial sort of knee-jerk the answer on where that's different and how content monetization works, maybe fan engagement, discovery, distribution? What are those? What key attributes are changing in the next 10 years? And I'm going to start with you, John.
Well, I'm just going to give you a use case, and maybe I'll spark these other folks. So at JPM Healthcare, our largest healthcare conference every year, just 2 weeks ago, we decided to launch our first digitally first native sort of commercial about the innovation economy business. We used no banners, no analog. We used only the digital screen in San Francisco and in the subways and system. So hopefully maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't. But what's interesting, we used AI on the content editing. We didn't use it on content generation. We used 3 founders, all healthcare, ironically, all women healthcare leaders, in video. And here's what we didn't do. We didn't use content creators. We didn't distribute through third-party mediums, right, other than the terminals. And the question is, 10 years from now, I think it'd be a totally different type of commercial. It won't be JP Morgan owned and generated, or probably founder generated and content sort of curated. So that's kind of how I would answer it from my perspective.
Ryan, I love how you kind of come back to this notion that AI isn't just about efficiency, and smaller companies and creators can now create these big universes and stuff. And I love that perspective. When it comes to monetization and distribution, how do you see that changing in the next 10 years?
Well, I mean, something that we're looking at is just like the text to video and images. Runway is one of them. That's Synthesia also just, I think, raised a fresh round in the last couple of days. But looking at how creators can take their invested in a comic book company, and a creator who's kind of focused on that, how he can use some of these basic tools to then generate short form video to go out and market his independent comics. It's kind of like bringing down the walls of, and I guess the democratization of the tools to kind of help the little guy or that independent creator, somebody who's a little outside the box. It's kind of what we're really focused on.
Ludovic, Nik, go ahead, jump in.
I was just going to add to Ryan's point just there. I think what we're seeing with these kind of AI native tools, it makes it a lot easier to create great content for the amateur creator. And I think you see that with OpenAI and their Sora release. I think there was a lot of jokes about it being AI slop. But if you actually project that out 10 years, you could see how a kid today using some of these tools could create a scripted show just using these tools, and it's going to become a lot more competitive for creating really, really great content. And so from a business perspective, it's just thinking about the same way that TikTok made it easy to create kind of micro reality TV. 10 years from now, there's going to be micro scripted content that looks professional grade, but was created by someone in their home.
How do you reckon that's getting monetized? Who's paying for that?
I think there's a lot of different models that could come together there. I think a lot of the value could go to the platforms like OpenAI if they win on the kind of the vertically integrated creation and distribution. But I think there's interesting models like micro payments. Do you see that coming in short form content, like the real shorts of the world, where you kind of have a new model for how you think about this shorter form content? But there will, of course, always be the place for traditional distribution. Film and television will still have a major place, but there's just going to be more ways of creating and distributing great content.
Ludovic, you've had some interesting views on maybe how the future looks, and how do you see that, and how does sort of from the Sony Innovations perspective, how are you looking at those things?
No, and just to follow up on what Nik was saying, in terms of the macro payments, I think we see a lot of opportunities for media, broadcasters, content producers to unlock micro, nano, pico transactions through new payment rails, which is why at Sony and Sony Ventures, we're looking very actively in investing into, for instance, stablecoin and on-chain payments, which I know blockchain had back and forth, and it used to be very wild. It's still wild to some extent, but it's now much more ready for the production of the entertainment world to adopt in terms of enabling new kinds of monetization where it's less monolithic and much more programmable, on-chain. The second monetization opportunity we see is in terms of how the media entertainment companies can play a more active role in creating value from their existing data, the B-rolls, the making of, in terms of these could be very valuable training data for the AI labs, for the OpenAI and other smaller models. We think the ethically properly provenance data sources in creating new marketplaces are very important. We invested several years ago, for instance, in a company called Define AI, which has become a very key player in terms of providing this clearinghouse between suppliers and the demand side of AI trading data. So this could be another type of monetization which is yet to be tapped into, mostly by the media industry.
Thanks, Ludovic. A quick show of hands. Who considers themselves either currently or previously from the traditional film and television or broadcast industry? I'm just curious to see the show of hands in the room. Okay. Who's still in the so-called traditional film, television, broadcast industry? Okay. So what's kind of behind my questioning here is I come from the traditional film and television production, post-production, technology industry. And what's happening in that sector is fundamental disruption from an economic and monetization perspective, brought on by streaming. And streaming video on demand and commercial free, and hundreds of billions of dollars have left those traditional areas of infrastructure and gone into some of these new areas like social. So I constantly am thinking about how does monetization change. That's, in my opinion, the biggest problem that needs to be solved for now across the board in some areas, or it's one of also the biggest areas of innovation opportunity, I think, moving forward as well. So that's behind that. So kind of moving on, if some of these changes are inevitable or taking place, and we're imagining some of these new models, what next? How do we actualize that? Like, what do we actually do given that world? What should this room build or buy or partner with? And when do you rely on the big labs versus the media native tools? John, you look like your brain was spinning there.
No, I would just say new software tools are being created. If you look at Base 10 on the inference side, if you look at Base 10 or Together AI or Fireworks AI, there are companies being created to give an advantage to those big data sets so that costs at the GPU are coming down. But I was at the earlier panel. I saw some of you from the earlier panel. It was interesting. I think AI is really interesting. I think AI favors the incumbents in infrastructure. And the only way I'd answer the question, maybe provocatively get these guys thinking about it, consumers are coming to us. So celebrities, both creators and traditional celebrity actors, are coming to JP Morgan and asking us for help financing new lifestyle brands. And so while I think the infrastructure race is going to go towards incumbents, I feel like on the consumer side, new brands are being created daily and new celebrities are being created. And monetization is a tough thing, but they're going to extend their brands. And the obvious one for all of you is Mr. Beast, an important client of ours. But just imagine every category being recreated. I was reading before we got him up here. The Oreo was invented in 1912. Did anyone know that? It is still the #1 sold cookie in America. Is that crazy? I think that's about to massively change. I think there's going to be hundreds of choices to choose from, and I don't think that Oreo will be the #1 cookie sold in America in 10 years from now. So I think consumers building lifestyle brands, they're going to be broad and free-ranging, and we're going to empower them, and it's going to take us in new directions. So that's my perspective. Here's how
I'm looking at more from like the position of IP, that creators can come up with their own ideas, and whether consumer related or content related, and look at the tools where they all have the ability, or you don't have to be a coder, you don't have to have a PhD in math or something, but you're able to generate content and distribute it and get it out there into the mainframe or the mainstream kind of consumer media, and it gains tractions, and things can, we see it, things go viral nowadays. And it takes one little spark like that, and somebody can turn from working in their office in their home into some popular media. And we're also looking from the media perspective is like, what else can we get off of it, like gaming, and what other consumer products they can spin out, and the tools in that IP are kind of what we're really focused on. But I agree with John, like the incumbents I think are going to be very much, they're all making their bets in all these companies that are raising capital in Series A to Series C right now, knowing that whichever ones succeed, they'll have kind of first right of refusal to purchase. And I think you're seeing it with like Google on the TPU side, the tensor processing units competing with NVIDIA. NVIDIA's investing in a circular, whether you buy into it, supporting their own sales of their GPUs. And I guess it's kind of also, when you're looking at investment, how far will this investment get to before it gets acquired? What kind of return am I looking at? So yeah, that's kind of our perspective.
I think it's very interesting what you mentioned. We see that as not a zero-sum game where the pie is kind of fixed, but actually potentially growing with this new set of tools that can unlock editing, post-production capabilities to non-expert users. If you put me in front of After Effects, it would be a disaster, but they have these kind of vibe editing tools that allow clipping, editing, semantic search of large video libraries, which have come quickly to a level that it can be actually quite usable for short format, macro drama, new types of high volume content. So we see that as a way to unlock, again, new types of production capabilities. In some cases, kind of new forms of content. So maybe one example I can share from Japan. Actually, originally, this whole trend of VTuber, where the YouTuber actually are virtual CG characters. And the first time I heard about this when I was in Japan, it was like, who on earth is going to watch that? I want to watch, Mr. Beast or equivalent. It's actually become very popular. So it's a very interesting blend of, game engines, real-time CG production with more traditional, video editing and so forth. So this has gone also mainstream, not just in Japan, but also I think increasingly in the Western world. So these are, I think, types of tools that can also attract maybe a younger audience, maybe a different audience that can complement the existing, install base of the viewership here.
And I was just reflecting back on your question, Seth, around building, buying, or partnering if you're in the professional media space. And I think I agree with everything that everyone has been saying, and I think tying it together, for me, I think there's certain use cases where buying is pretty clear. If it's kind of more of these social consumer, maybe like social media advertising. And then if you kind of move up the professional stack and you're saying, like you want to create professional content with these AI tools, I think it's really hard to use the text to video tool to get there. You don't have the control, you don't have the ability to, like get the output that you really want. And so what I have been seeing a lot is companies and these AI companies partnering with professional media companies and really getting in there, figuring out the particular workflows. How can we help with, if you're an animation studio, the in-between frames of an animation film, and what AI tools can we build custom for you? So I think to really get this to work, it's going to be a partnership between AI platforms, companies, and media companies. And so thinking about who could be a good partner to build with, I think is important.
Nik, without violating confidentiality or naming names of things, can you call out anything that you've seen recently that's really exciting, some innovation,
I mean, I think just at a high level, one thing that I've seen is studios that are popping up de novo with really the mandate to be AI first. And I think what's exciting about that is that you can, it's not just about cost and it's not just about like being able to create more. It's actually about speeding up the artist's workflow. So for animation, for example, like the in-between example that I was mentioning before, it allows a principal animator to get their idea into final form much more quickly. And so instead of creating shorts that could take months or years to make, you can do it in a couple of weeks. And so I just think that these models are going to be very interesting and give a lot of power to the artist and the creator to do more.
Anybody else seen anything exciting? John, actually, when you and I were talking a couple days ago, you had a really interesting take on what kind of talent is moving forward and how we kind of characterize the influencer versus talent versus how that drives the content itself. The creators themselves as brands and how other brands.
You're going to hit me on the regulatory stuff. Coming too. Yeah. That's because I'm sure that's coming too.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, I just read Matthew McConaughey copyright himself and more stars. We see a world where the new stars, celebrities are going to be these content creators that Nik is talking about. I don't know where they stop. And I also see existing stars extending their brands, as I was sharing earlier. I'll give you an example category without giving away too much IP here, but non-alcoholic beer. Like for the last 20 years, we've had one brand and it sucks. And you're about to see an explosion in alcoholic beer. There's already been a few brands out there. There's one new one coming. It's really targeted at women, and it's going to be an amazing category.
And why is that?
Just because I think people's tastes are evolving, and having these influencers extend their brand to their their likes and dislikes changes your personal taste because it becomes part of our culture. And I think that's what my kids, who are all in their 20s, wanted me to share with all of you, how much they drive cultural change in America today. They feel like they're influencing behavior in a way that we've not seen before. And so for me, that's the big change I'm seeing, where people individually are creating brands that extend into the broader mainstream. And we're going to be consuming stuff that we thought, I can't believe I'm consuming this, but we're going to eat it. And I don't think the Feastables chocolates are very good, but I think he is a credible brand. And he's going to keep going. Now he's got game shows, and I don't know where he goes next, but that's what I'm trying to get at. Maybe the product is just the beginning to a larger extension of a cultural kind of zeitgeist as we think about it. Be curious what you guys think.
I mean, I don't focus that deeply in the consumer side for consumer packaged goods, but we had Poppy was bought, I think, what was it, Pepsi this year, and what was it, the other one was bought as well too. You're definitely seeing, but I do believe that you need to, as an influencer or a star, that you need to actually buy into your product, that you need the consumer to believe that as the creator of it, because if it's not, as you said, your kids can probably identify who really buys into that product or if they don't. And I truly believe that people are like, okay, if they buy into it, they're like, this is kind of what I'm buying into is my lifestyle. And I think that's key for it to resonate with those consumers. And that kind of goes across the board with anything as far as content goes.
I'm hearing more and more about this notion of going from a push economy to a sort of pull economy where, traditionally content was created and you as a consumer have some choices. When I grew up, we had 5 channels, and so, okay, you had some choices, but that was it, and they were serving the content to you, and now it's turning into a pull economy where you can literally go find or create whatever it is that you want, and how that really changes everything, really. I
just think you're seeing it with the younger generation, like with Roblox and Fortnite. They go to these communities where they sit on the same servers and play with their friends in school, and that's kind of like where their tribe and group of friends is whereas like you and I used to go out and ride a bike and play in the neighborhood, and it's just totally changed as far as like the consumption patterns of the younger generation and how they're spending their free time, I guess.
Yeah. What do you guys think about, it comes up from time to time, this notion of blockchain or Web3 or distributed ledger technologies playing into this. Obviously, blockchain's been around for a while. There are some examples of where it's been successful, obviously crypto, but not, crypto, not from a currency perspective, from a transactional perspective. Is that going to play into this future in some way? Does anybody have a view on that?
I think so. I think it's already playing a role. We talked briefly about stablecoin, which have become, a true enterprise, serious, kind of enabler. Another angle, maybe closer to the media world, is the use of decentralization to access these GPUs. Could be desktop, laptop grade, NVIDIA GPUs for transcoding, recoding, distribution, maybe of these new forms of videos. And so it actually doesn't need to be shown as Web3 or crypto to the end users, but it can actually create a new way for micro monetization to incentivize these consumers to share some of their idle bandwidth or GPU cycles while they are watching, maybe they do second screen. So we see that more happening kind of in the back. And if it's done the right way, we think there is an opportunity. One example I can give is actually one of our portfolio companies called Theta Network, which has developed DeepIn, so decentralized physical GPU infrastructure, and they work with the likes of Bertelsmann and Samsung, and Sony is also a node validator, and many broadcast companies to distribute more effectively, not as a replacement of an Akamai or Level 3, but more as a complement to bring more capillarity for live content distribution, especially.
Anybody else have a view on that? Anybody else tracking
I
that?
believe, ownership that people want when they're spending, for us, it's more focused on games, but in-game items, that they actually want to be able to take it from one game and own it and then sell it if they want. I mean, it's a huge Counter-Strike global. The skins market is a massive market that's out there. And, when we had all these NFTs and everything, like I think crypto and kind of the chain got a negative name, but it's been, well, who did like the NASDAQ just invested in like Polymarket or something? Like everything is evolving. I mean, JP Morgan is now involved in crypto, and they were definitely not a pro crypto firm out of the gate. And you're seeing it with ETFs, and people are beginning to like, one thing, you don't have to open up a wallet anymore. You can go buy an ETF through NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange and have exposure to crypto. And I think it's that feeling of ownership of your items that you've purchased, as opposed to just renting them.
All right, rapid fire, 30 seconds each. We have 2 minutes left. If you could sum up one word of advice for this group to take away from this discussion.
I can start there, and then going off of Ryan's point, I mean, we're seeing decentralization in a lot of ways. There's 10 years ago, decentralization of distribution with the streaming platforms. Now we're seeing it in creation, we're seeing it in payments. And I think the landscape is changing. There's an opportunity to partner with great AI companies to kind of keep on that cutting edge as the world gets more decentralized.
Thanks, Nick. Ludovic.
So past 2 years, we've seen a lot of these general purpose, large language models, multimodal models. Currently and in the near future, these more specialized models that can run on the edge, that can maybe be more embedded into your production, post-production workflow. So meaning you can become more proactive in harnessing that, retraining these models, and making them more an integral part of your whole value chain.
Thank you, Ludovic.
Mine would probably be a bigger, just broader. Like I would embrace the tools that are coming into your industry and learn about them. Some will last, some will be fleeting, but I think there's a tremendous amount of opportunity about looking to the future and taking advantage of these new tools and seeing how you can integrate them into your production, creative, whatever aspect that is. That they're making things a lot easier and a lot more efficient.
Educate yourself.
Yeah, I think you should embrace and educate yourself.
That's great advice, Ryan. Last word, John.
Just going back to my beginning thesis on how we did our commercial of ourselves. Humans are resistant to change. Break the rules. I wish I could have pushed my marketing team to go further, engaging these tools and these innovators around, on creation that I was afraid to because we're JP Morgan. So that would be my advice.
Thank you very much to the panelists. This was great. I wish we had more time. Marty, more time next time. Thank you, everybody.